Record. All right, everybody. Thanks for your patience. My name is Ken Satkunim. I own North Star Technology Group. Some of you know me, a lot of you don't. Our purpose is to help businesses, companies, organizations protect their reputations and their information from the bad guys. We do that by building fast, available, and secure technology. And today, I'd like to welcome Travis Kroger. Travis is our guest speaker. He is the cyber lead at Bone and Associates. Travis is an expert in cyber insurance and risk management solution, and he kind of has a talent for identifying gaps in client cyber risk strategies and actually building tailored solutions to help fill them, address those. As a technology enthusiast, Travis excels at communicating complex cyber exposures in easily understandable terms. And that's honestly why I think, have developed such a good relationship, because no one likes insurance, right? It's a complex thing. Even if you set the thing in front of me and I read it, I have no idea even exactly what it means. So Travis, you have a talent in kind of taking all that complex information and even helping a guy as dumb as I to figure out and understand it. Travis is definitely dedicated, empowering his clients with knowledge and tools they need to protect their business. And on a lighter note, Travis is not only a successful professional, but also a devoted parent to 3 children, 3, all under the age of 5, I might add, which we all know means that he has virtually no life outside of work and family. Travis, welcome, brother. Thank you for taking time today. How are you doing?
Thanks, buddy. I'm doing well. No, these bags under my eyes, I earned them.
Right.
It's it's fun. No, I've got 3 kids and a lovely wife, and it's my passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those traditional family men that you don't really see very often, but it's a lot of fun. I love spending my time with them.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate who you are as a individual, as a human being, especially as a professional. Just for everyone's benefit, please, if you have any questions as we kind of go through this, it's going to be kind of informal today. We're not going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation. Travis and I are just really going to have kind of a conversation about some of the most common issues that we see regarding cyber liability insurance, incident response, when something bad happens, and kind of how to make sure that you guys are prepared before all that nonsense happens. I'm going to put some contact information in the chat. Hopefully this works. And again, I'll probably post that again at the end. So if after all of this is said and done, you guys have more questions, or you want to talk to Travis regarding your cyber insurance policies, are you covered, for what you should be covered for, any questions about that stuff, you want to get competitive information on that, Travis is your guy. Obviously, for those of you that are customers of ours, you can work through us, but Travis is the guy. Travis, let's just jump into this. Okay.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me why having an incident response plan is important when it comes to your cyber liability insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are 4 main reasons, right? The first one is reducing the impact of the cyber attacks. Second one is demonstrating that you're proactive in your risk management. Third is meeting some legal and statutory requirements. And fourth is addressing potential coverage gaps. I'm going to dive into them if it's okay.
Yeah.
If I get a little long-winded, just stop me and say, "Hey, man, we don't care." Um, but this is my bread and butter, man. I love it. So I get a little passionate. So just stop me if I get too
Of
far.
course. No.
So reducing the impacts of cyber attacks. So one of the primary benefits of an incident response plan is that it can help minimize the impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a well-designed plan can outline the clear steps for identifying and responding to a breach, enabling you to contain the attack and prevent it from spreading. This in turn can help reduce the damage and help you recover more quickly, which as in a cyber insurance agent and working with cyber insurance carriers, that's the goal, right? To get you up and running as fast as you can. Um, so having an incident response plan in place can demonstrate to the insurance carrier that you're taking proactive steps to demonstrate and protect your business from cyber threats. This leads to more favorable policy terms, more favorable pricing, and the insurance carrier will see you as a lower risk. So
Mhm.
one example I have of this, we just got done negotiating the deal. Um, I have carriers out there that will hold your hand from start to finish and do everything for you in the event of a cyber claim. They own their own IT companies. They own their own legal console. They pick you up, put you in a safe space, and help you get through it. They're expensive. They're really good. Their forms are some of the best in the industry, but they're expensive. So I had a client that took on a 35% increase in their rate, and it was a little excessive. They've been working with me to implement an incident response plan that kind of laid out those steps, the hand holding that the insurance company would do, and kind of develop their own plan for it.
Mhm.
With that, we were able to go with a cheaper insurance company that they're just as reputable. They've been in the industry for 20 plus years, which is as long as you, right? How long have you been around?
Like 100.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, no, 23 actually. We've been around for 23 years.
so I mean that's the bleeding edge, right, of cyber insurance, of cyber in general, of IT in general. um, so I was able to place them with a reputable carrier with good paper that didn't have the hand holding, that didn't have
Mhm.
the great incident response, and we were able to supplement that with their own incident response plan. We saved them 70%.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So it's not a carrier saying, "Oh, you check this box, we're going to give you a discount." It's a risk management strategy, right? We know that carrier A won't do this anymore, so we need to build it into our response plan, and it's saving us X amount of dollars. Not a lot of people think that way, so that's a great way to demonstrate that to your carrier, is having a plan in place and you leveraging that to save you money and be a better risk. So I mentioned legal and regulatory requirements. You probably deal with this a lot, Ken,
Mhm.
with your businesses, your clients. In the IT side of things, it's different than in the insurance side of things. So your incident response plan, you'll work with your compliance, you'll work with your regulators to make sure that it encompasses regulations like GDPR, HIPAA, PCI. If your state has certain rules, California is a
Yep.
nightmare. If you're in New York, I'm sorry. Um, but this can also address those things so you're not getting sued when your worst day happens because you forgot to dot an I or cross a T. And
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that, Travis, right, with the compliance side. And I think a important piece I think I want to make note, of course, is that there is a difference, right, between compliance, cybersecurity best practices, and even what insurance requires, right? And so, being able to, you talk about dotting I's and crossing T's, right? The check boxes for compliance may differ slightly with what you need, right, as a broker and working with your carriers. So, being able to work closely with, our agents like you to be able to cross map what they're already doing maybe for compliance, but may are not be doing right when it comes to cyber insurance, and being able to grease the wheels to get claims or get reimbursements or to be able to get renewals is so important.
yeah, man, I wish there was a common roadmap, right? Be like,
Yeah,
you do
we all
this, you
do.
get insurance.
Yeah.
And luckily, the insurance industry is working with the managed service providers and the IT security professionals to try to streamline this. And it's me looking into a crystal ball saying, okay, hopefully in 5 years we have the standard that if you qualify for this standard, you get insurance, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of carriers are working towards that as the applications become very similar. Um, but this brings me on to my favorite. Your incident response plan, it helps identify gaps in your insurance coverage. Um, this is this is something that not everybody does, not
Mhm.
everybody realizes. But if you work with a reputable agent, they're involved in this process, and you can figure out, man, we had a debit card hack, and that's what people call everything, whether it's a it's a hack. We
Right.
had a debit card hack, and somebody stole $15,000 out of our checking account, and it wasn't covered by insurance. Well, we can address that, right? Let's get rid of the debit card. Let's let the credit card company eat that. Um, but That's the fun thing. By thinking through these different scenarios and the steps you would take to respond to them, you can discover areas where your policy won't provide that coverage,
Right.
and just work with your insurance agent and figure that stuff out. So overall, I guess to go back to your question, an incident response plan raises awareness. The awareness leads to risk management, and that risk management leads to less incidents. So it's a win-win-win. It's a fun little circle.
Yeah, and you've used the word fun a couple times, and I'm super excited how passionate you are. But the fun stuff, right, comes before anything bad happens, right? So this is only fun while before something leads to us needing to call you, right? But I 100% agree with you. I love your passion on this stuff. Um, so Travis, how does the cyber insurance policy affect my choice or our customer's choice of vendors and legal counsel in the event of a cyber attack?
Yeah, everybody says, "Hey, I've got this buddy. He's going to come help me, and we're going to do it." Or I've got a retainer with this lawyer, so they're my
Mm,
lawyer.
mm,
Well, unfortunately, that's not the case, right? That you can do that, but you're going to pay for it out of your pocket, likely. Cyber insurance policies, they may have specific requirements for the vendors and legal counsel you choose to work with in the event of a cyber attack. For example, the policy might require that you work with vendors or law firms that have specific certifications, experience levels, meet standards like the
mhm,
NIST standard.
yeah.
Your cyber insurance agent honestly should be able to explain those requirements, if they're in place, where to find them, and provide some guidance on how to ensure that your chosen partners will meet them and get paid for, right? Because nobody wants to hire somebody, have them start working, and get declined by the insurance company just because you didn't prepare, right? So
Mhm.
again, it goes back to that preparation. The most common, right, is panel vendors. So in your insurance policy, there's probably a list of vendors. It's about a full page length, size 8, like tiny little font that says, if you have this type of incident, these are the vendors that are approved. Um, if you're unaware of who those vendors are or have not had the conversation with your agent, do it. Do it
Mm.
before the incident, because it is no fun looking at that list going, all right, which one should I choose? There's 30 of them here, or there's 10 of them here, or there's one and they're based out of India. I don't know who they are. Um, that's never a fun conversation to have as you're being ransomed or you're experiencing a claim that's already stressful.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a common theme, right, as we kind of go through this, is preparation before, the event, or left of bang, right? We want to
Yeah.
stay left of bang. So all these conversations are before something bad happens. And we just recently worked with a hospital in the state of North Dakota where they had a full ransom attack. It pretty much impacted every single device in their environment. And in this case, many lessons were learned. But one of them was the importance, of course, of working closely with those vendors that cyber liability insurance has dictated as being approved to do certain tasks during the recovery and the forensics, the legal, the communication. So, you know, again, I'm going to keep reiterating: look at your policy now, have these conversations with your agent now, work with your IT provider now on what that incident response is in that plan. Sorry, I keep going.
You're good, buddy. And one thing that not a lot of agents will do is, if it's not on that panel vendor, they'll just say, "Oh, you can't use it."
Mhm.
There are ways to get your lawyer, your incident response firm pre-approved, right? If you have that conversation with your agent, with your underwriter, with the carrier prior to a claim, there are forms that you can get done. There are carriers like CFC and Beasley that it's borderline impossible to do, but most carriers are willing to listen. Um, it's a matter of being open, honest, transparent, right? But be aware too that your policy might have limitations or exclusions on vendors or law firms that you can work with. For example, a policy might not cover a certain type of legal fees. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what legal fees come into play in the event of a claim, other than Most of my carriers don't have those exclusions, so I don't deal with it. I've seen them where they limit the type of coverage you have or the amount of coverage you have if you use a specific vendor. If you use CrowdStrike, I'm going to pick on them because they're a great vendor. Um, you get full limits, but if you use somebody other than CrowdStrike, you get half the limit, right? Because they know that it's going to get the job done and that the rates are affordable and that they're proven. So it's again, I'm gonna keep stressing, have that conversation with your cyber insurance agent. Make them do their work, do their due diligence,
Mm-hmm.
and know that policy and understand what the limitations. And if your policy doesn't have specific requirements, ask your agent, who have you worked with? What kind of claims have you dealt with? Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? That's I mean, lean on those that have done it before, so you're not doing it alone, right?
I can't stress that point enough, Travis, is whoever you're working with, it doesn't matter which stage, right, along this either the preparation path, the incident time, forensics, post recovery, right? Work with and lean against those that have experienced helping organizations navigate that, because it's of anything, right? Especially in IT, insurance, legal, people that have seen this stuff before learn their lessons, right? They know how to get through these things with as little pain as possible. And believe me, like, this is the worst, an incident event, a cyber event is the worst possible feeling, right, to have as an organization, especially as a leader. Lean on those that have done this stuff before, please.
Yeah. And speaking of doing it before, practice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about practice, kind of turn this a little bit. We talked about preparation. We talked about scenarios. You and I talk about tabletop exercises, right? So can you kind of explain to everybody what a tabletop exercise is and why having a tabletop exercise is important for testing your incident response plans, and how that can really help an organization prepare for a cyber attack?
Yeah, yeah. So we all had that one friend. He would invite you over to his basement so you could play Dungeons and Dragons with him and his buddies, right? They needed a guest, they needed a rogue, they needed a mage, right? Um, so a tabletop exercise is a pretend scenario that's in a controlled environment, usually led by someone who likes to role play. It's a test of your plan, of your incident response plan. They're a valuable tool for testing, refining. They allow you to identify any weaknesses or gaps in your response plan before an actual attack occurs. Nobody likes to see an operator operating a heavy piece of machinery with the shakes, right? Nobody wants to go into a scenario with an expert that's never done it before. Nobody wants to get into something and wing it. That's tabletop exercises allow you to simulate a realistic scenario in that controlled environment, allowing you to practice your response and make any necessary adjustments to your plan. But what I like most about it is they help build skills and confidence in your team, right? Because the people are the ones that are are dictating this outcome. So it helps them respond more effectively and efficiently in the event of a real attack. They provide hands-on experience with incident response and work on communication, decision making, problem solving skills that may be lacking if a team gets together once a year, right? If you're an organization with an office in Fargo, an office in Sioux Falls, office in Minneapolis, getting all those heads together to communicate and follow through on a plan is not easy. So that's where it's super important to practice.
Mm-hmm.
But can I don't deal a lot with the regulatory side of things. Have you seen issues pop up in a tabletop that say, "Whoa, we can't do that because of HIPAA. We can't do that because we do business in Europe and we're going to have to notify people within 18 days," right?
Yeah, and I think yes, certainly, and again, this is where the talking about working with people experience with the compliance needs in conjunction with what your cyber liability insurance provider has for coverage, right? There still needs to be that interpretation and that crosswalk and that that mapping, we call it, right? And yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that we've come across that may be challenging, right? So the cybersecurity incident response plan, there may be some things that we have to do and account for, right? That insurance may not be able to help us with, and vice versa. And again, these things are identified during that tabletop process, and having these scenario based conversations, and we're trying to work through every one of our customers, right, is a different path on that journey, right? And the first, of course, you nailed it. It's building that incident response plan that has to be part of that, right? And ultimately, of course, the customer is responsible for signing off and making sure that this is something that can be accomplished, just like any other policy or any other procedure. And once that is kind of nailed down, then you can kind of start to refine that based on these tabletop exercises. And for even regionally, we talk about, like, I was just we're in our green room talking about flood potential, right, for the Red River Valley this year. We haven't had in a number of years where this has been a risk, right? But we've gone through that in with events that Red River flooding, right? And how do you handle data? If it's stored on premise, how do you handle business continuity planning even outside of IT, right? And then insurance may have a whole other involvement in this that's not cyber. It has to do with property or something, right? So yeah, all of these scenarios need to be part of a kind of a well orchestrated, leadership driven tabletop process that involves everybody that has a stake in this.
Yeah, I can't stress the importance of getting your agent, and if you have a managed service or a managed IT provider that you rely on, get them involved in the process, right? Uh, your agent will help you identify the coverage gaps. By simulating these attacks, you discover your policy doesn't provide sufficient coverage, right? Every insurance policy that I write has sublimits. It
Yeah.
sucks. It really sucks, but I've seen sublimits as low as $25,000 for cyber extortion or ransomware. It's ridiculous what people are putting the words cyber insurance on. Right? It's a piece of paper. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah. And Travis, I just want to make and this is a huge kudos to you. As we started to kind of work together with some of the stuff that we're doing internally, the confusion around the language of policies and what is covered and what is not covered. And again, it's in context. You expose some of these questions during your tabletop exercises, during your incident response planning. But even so, it's just confusing, and being able to understand, where are you seeing claims being made? What is, even if I identify risk from a cybersecurity perspective, you can help our customers identify coverage-based risk based on your likelihood of having to see these type of claims. And so, yeah, again, coming back to the same message, meet with your agent, meet with your IT provider, make sure that they are talking. Right?
Yeah, the communication between the IT professionals, whether they be an in-house, a managed service provider, one of those virtual CISOs, the communication between that level and your insurance agent should be direct, right? You can be sitting there in the same room, but they need to be having the conversation to each other, because what one does affects how the other can cover it. And once you get that point across to your upper level C-suite, you're going to find a lot of barriers just fall to the ground, because the common languages that are being spoken, your IT provider might have been saying this for years, saying, hey, we need multi-factor on our email. I think this is going to be a threat. And then your insurance agent says, hey, if you don't have it, I'm not going to write you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that we're seeing is, we know the insurance providers don't want to be banks anymore for this stuff, right? So the requirements are getting more and more complex. The applications are getting more and more lengthy and detailed. and and being able to have a good relationship to be able to talk through that and understand exactly what is necessary, right, to get renewals, to get coverage, to get claims reimbursed is so critical.
Yeah. Yep.
So anything else regarding tabletop exercises? I think, obviously, but for those that are customers of ours, these are things that are going to be coming up. You're going to start seeing these as part of our strategic business review conversations and agendas. For those of you that are not customers and are looking for, a good insurance agent, make sure you take a look at the chat. But speaking of insurance agents, right, your role, Travis, right? What specifically role do you play in the claims process, and how would you support a customer that is going through a cyber attack?
Yeah, Ken, I appreciate you asking this one. It's actually came up a lot lately. As I've been doing some of these speaking gigs, people talk about how, oh, my agent doesn't know anything about cyber. He's not around, and we had a ransomware event, and he helped me find a new insurance company. That's about the extent of him. That's I do things a little different. During a claim, your agent should wear a lot of hats. I work with you, the insured, right, to gather information about the incident, including the nature and the scope of the attack, the systems and data that are affected, and the potential impact on your business. Your insurance agent works for both you and the insurance company, right? They're being pulled both directions. They're made to represent both equally. So I act as a liaison between you and the carrier. I help the carrier facilitate the claims process and ensure that they have all the information they need to process the claim. This might include coordinating with adjusters. For those of you who don't know what adjusters are and are very fortunate not to know what they are, they're the people that actually get out there and determine how much they're going to cut you the check for. I work with the investigators and coordinate the data between the third-party vendors. We talked about them on that panel list, right?
Mm-hmm.
So another part that most agents will kind of shy away from, that I do right, wrong, or otherwise, is I like to help the customer explain the terms of the policy and the coverages and how they're going to apply to the specific situation. Now, depending on the claim, I might try to provide guidance and my interpretation of the insurance coverages that might come into play during a claim, but I don't decide the outcome, right? I'm not the one that's writing the check.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the person that says, yep, it's covered. Nope, we're going to deny this one. But what I do is I go to bat for my clients, and I like to make sure that the adjuster is looking at the claim in the right light, right? This was a 0-day attack. They had multi-factor. Of course, it's going to be covered, right? And highlight the parts of the policy that I think are relevant to the conversation. Adjusters appreciate that, right? They're experts too, and they understand the policy, but they're open to interpretation a lot of the times. And if your agent's willing to go to bat for you, a lot of times they can get some coverages that weren't necessarily there. Another part of it is I provide guidance and support through the claims process. Claims suck, man. I don't care how prepared you are.
Oh yeah, they're awful.
They're the worst. Even if you have good insurance, a great plan, there's still a major inconvenience. Nobody wants to have a claim. So some of my clients, they've never even talked to a lawyer before, like ever.
Lucky.
Let alone one that's saying, okay, we have $1 million ransom. What are we going to do? Are we going to pay it? Or are we going to just recover the data and wing it? Right? So that's when I come in and I'm your cheerleader. I'm that shoulder to cry on. I'm rubbing you on the back saying, it's going to be okay. We'll get through this. And I lean heavily on my experience, my expertise with these cyber claims to say, all right, here's what we've done in the past. Here's how I've seen it play out if we do this or this. As a business owner, what are you going to choose to do?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I'm finishing up a claim. It was a small one, roughly $100,000. Right, it was small is a relative term, I guess.
It is.
But I just had
it's chump change, couch money right there. Yeah.
The owner of this business, she's a 70-year-old lady, uh, God-fearing woman, right? She's just salt of the earth. You can't beat her. And she called me up and goes, Travis, you're my savior. You're just a godsend. And I mean, she's never done anything like this. She doesn't even own a computer like herself. So this was a cyber claim was a bad deal for their business. Um, but in this claim alone, I guided her on how to approach the assigned lawyer from the company. We had one of those carriers that hold your hand the entire way. Um, I advocated for her to get an extra $10,000 that the carrier said, that's really not part of it. They're not an approved vendor type
Mhm.
coverage, and they were ready to decline it. Um, I read the policy language. I highlighted it for the adjuster, and he said, "Oh no, actually, I think you're right. We're going to approve this one." And it was like $10,030. Right? She could have paid that. She runs a very nice business. She could have paid that, but the fact that I was able to help her get that extra money, and then in the end, because she didn't even have an in-house IT team, I was able to line her up with a managed service provider to help her recover from the attack. She didn't know that her server was running on Windows 10 from 2016 or something like that. Like it was an old one. It was out of date. It was end of life. She had no idea that her access points were all wide open. Um,
Mhm.
and so we helped rebuild her from the ground up, and now we're working on an incident response plan with her for next time. Right? Hopefully, it never ever happens, but she gained a lot out of this. So, I mean, I guess overall, your agent needs to be there for you the same as they were when they were writing the policy and collecting that check from you. If you don't
Yep.
have an agent with cyber expertise, um, I'm not going to say run away from your agent, because your agent might be really good at pollution liability or builder's risk or general liability. But the cyber piece is really easy to peel away and stick with somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about.
Yeah, and I can't reiterate that enough. To work with an agent that understands this. We do work with a significant amount of customers that have had to go through, either renewals or just brand new policy applications. Just because honestly, within the last 3 or 4 years, since the threat landscape has just accelerated, um, you know there are a lot of customers that prior to that didn't even have the cyber policies at all. So like, this is kind of a relatively new thing for a lot of businesses and leaders to try to understand and digest, and having somebody that really understands the nuance, right? What needs to be covered, what may not need to be, is absolutely critical. Absolute 100%.
Yeah, and I was reading an article, and they're no longer calling cyber an emerging risk.
Yeah.
That's what it's been called
Oh,
for the
yeah.
last 4 years.
Yeah.
Emerging risk, emerging market. The thing is, uh,
It's here. It's here now.
it's here. It's gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna pass general liability in premium, which
Mhm.
is unheard of for something to do that fast.
Yeah.
So because it's critical, every business needs it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So last question I have for you is, you alluded a little bit, of course, to working with IT providers or MSPs. What role does a customer's internal IT or their IT provider play in that claims process? And can you work with them to resolve issues?
Right. Yeah, we talked about the approved panel vendors and um, how scary that conversation could be. The nice thing about a managed service provider, right, is they're your boots on the ground. If you're a small business with no internal IT team, odds are you don't know how to run half of the IT equipment. You don't understand what half of the IT jargon is. And that's where the boots on the ground, the managed service provider gets to uh, flex their technical expertise, right? So during a cyber claim, I mentioned that I'll be coordinating with you, the business owner, all these very technical questions on behalf of the insurance carrier. If you can't answer those, then I'm bringing in the managed service provider and working directly with them. And you can still be in the room, and odds are the lawyer is going to be in there too. But we'll talk about identifying the next steps according to your incident response plan. If there isn't one, the managed service provider is going to help identify the root cause of this attack and work with the insurance company to restore the systems and data per their incident response. And so going right along with that, uh, the agent, will typically work with the managed service provider to just coordinate efforts, right? Make sure
Mhm.
that they're doing exactly what the carrier is asking and not running around and deleting logs and uh, doing their own thing because that's the way they've always done it. Um, and the managed service provider, and Ken, if I'm putting you in a bad light, man, just stop me and say, "Hey,
Yeah,
dude, that's
no,
not how I operate," because you've
no.
seen it.
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate that, right? So one, of course, having the right incident response plan that you need to work with your IT provider ahead of time to get that in place. A recent incident that we worked with, this customer had several IT providers doing various functions within the organization, and one of the critical mistakes that were made was immediately restoring the data, which overwrote logs and any type of forensic imaging that would need to happen, right? So I can see the frustration that insurance carriers have with IT providers and managed service providers that are not well versed, right, in the process of incident response and data protection, forensics, and these kind of things. So it's critical that your MSP and your IT provider or your internal IT provider understand that process of incident response. So when they work with an insurance carrier, that they aren't fumbling and bumbling and making it worse, right? When we work with an insurance carrier, we build a pretty clear demarcation line between what we're supposed to do and what insurance and their vendors are doing, right? So in the last example, right, we were part of the recovery effort, right? We were part of information gathering for that insurance carrier, right? Because there's certain things that they need, right, in order to continue to understand what's going on in this environment. Are we safe? Are we not safe? Is this a continuing threat or not? Right. And then of course we then allow that insurance carrier through their vendors to handle the data forensics, right? They can assist with recovery if it is massive, right? We actually worked with an assisted recovery effort because we had to send somebody remotely to a geography that was not accessible, and restore almost 200 workstations in a period of like 24 to 48 hours, right? So we work with these vendors, right, in conjunction with some of the stuff that we're currently doing. And of course, obviously the goal of working with an IT provider or an MSP is to not get in that position in the first place, right? So we focus heavily on prevention, right? But at the end of the day, we're talking about insurance and what has to happen. So no, like absolutely, we understand our role, right?
Yeah.
And working with an insurance carrier and their vendors is part of our strategy process as well.
Yeah, and no matter how good a managed service provider is, they've likely experienced a cybersecurity incident resulting in a claim, right?
Mhm.
That's nobody's going to say, nope, our clients, they don't
Yeah, no,
have incidents. People are people. The human aspect, the human element is
yeah,
irreplaceable and just a pain in the butt. Sorry.
and if an MSP says that they've never had a customer that has had to make a claim, they are flat out lying. And I will say with that, in that same breath, is that those also are the learning moments, right? Those are the growing moments. And and as an MSP, of course, working with customers that have had to experience different things, um, uh, we build upon that, right? So if you ever hear me say, we need to raise our standard of care, or threat landscape is changing, and this is what we've learned from it, that's what it is. It's rooted in these very, very uncomfortable experiences, right? That have allowed us to retool people, retool process, retool tools. It's a constant layer and constant learning that we do, right, as an MSP, and we work so closely with our insurance partners to make sure that we continue to do the things that will make it as easy as possible for our customers to get renewals and to get claims.
Right. I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head there, right? The experience of a managed service provider plus the experience of an agent results in a team that's there
Mhm.
for you, that's been there, they've done that, they understand the game, and they're ready to go to bat on your behalf. That 1-2 punch is irreplaceable when it hits the fan, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, Travis, is there anybody that has any questions? Obviously, post them to the chat, or the Q&A right now. But Travis, is there anything that that I didn't ask you, or that you wish I would have when it comes to this stuff? Is there any final thoughts that you want to give our fantastic audience?
I mean, my takeaway on this is you got to have fun, right? It's easy for me to do. I love this stuff. I'm passionate about it. When I walk into a war room, it's so fun because you get a bunch of people sitting in a conference room. They talk to each other once a year sometimes, and I pull out a deck of cards, right? And they're like, "Okay, we're not playing poker, are we?" No, no, no. We run through my 1980s Bowen and Associates deck of cards, and I might pull out a card, and it's an ace of spades, and I say, okay, and not looking at it. If this card is black, the CEO is in Punta Cana. Go sit down. I pull out a queen of spades. I say, okay, if this one is red, your CISO has a 103-degree fever. Well, he's here today. So I
Yeah.
bring randomness to my tabletops. I love interacting, and I also love being a part of just a fly in the corner, right? Of the tabletops. But practice them, right, guys? Have
Yeah.
fun, get together, understand the importance of risk management versus just insuring something. Cyber
Yeah.
risk management can work for free or little cost just by changing the way you do things.
Yeah, and so again, obviously, I agree with you. It's just kind of interesting you make some of those comments of just the randomness and building scenarios. Of course, have fun doing that. But to take a kind of a reality spin to that, the last cyber incident that we worked on that involved working with an insurance carrier, the CEO and the lone IT person had COVID. Combine that with a blizzard, right, that hit the area at the exact same time during the need to do the recovery, right? Can't make this stuff up, right? You can't. So, as we approach tabletop exercises, we've seen, a lot, right? There's a common, insurance carrier commercial that we won't talk about, right? We've seen a lot, right? And so, kind of working through some of those scenarios that we've actually seen, I think brings some relevance to that stuff. But anyway, if we don't have any questions, I guess we could probably kind of wrap this up. I'm going to post our contact information in the chat one more time.
Friendly
Hopefully
reminder,
that worked.
since you guys showed up today and listened to
Oh,
me ramble,
yes.
we're going to be sending out an incident response template if you guys want it. Just shoot me an email. My email's in the chat, and I'll shoot you over a Bowen and Associates, intro to incident response. It's not going to do it for you, but it's a good way to get started and have that conversation with the leadership, saying, "Hey, this is something that needs to be done, and these are some of the first steps we can do to start it."
Yeah, so absolutely. So yeah, we'll be sending that stuff out. We, for those of you guys that are current customers, we'll be working with you guys as part of policy procedure, especially those that have compliance regulations that we need to work with. We did have a quick question in here, and so Travis, does Bowen and Associates have customers regionally, or are you guys nationwide?
Nationwide. I think we're licensed in like 38 or 39 states, but we're everywhere, right?
And would they be able to work no matter where they are in the country with you, or how does that process work?
Yeah, absolutely. We're one location. You call here, you talk to Jennifer or Tina at the front desk, right? We have that local small town feel. But yeah, you'll work with me. I handle 100% of the cyber that runs through our agency. It's what I do. It's my bread and butter. It's what I love. I mean, if there's a state that we're not licensed in, the way that I've kind of agreed with the business partners here at Bowen is if if a customer needs us and it will cover our licensing fee for that state, we'll do it.
Right. Good. Yeah, that's awesome. And as far as the process, is there a time, like a lead time, right, that you prefer, right, to kind of go over this stuff? So if someone is new or looking to maybe change agents or providers, like when do they need to get a hold of you? Like, I know, it seems like I'm sure you're always upset with us because we're waiting till like the day before or something, right? So what would you like? How would you like this process to work?
Well, I mean, you threw yourself under the bus there, so I didn't have
I
to.
know. No,
But
I'm
if
self-aware.
So a cyber application, I found if you have somebody in-house or a managed service provider, we can usually hammer that application out in about a week or a week and a half. I might be throwing your managed service provider under the bus if they're like, whoa, dude, we have 50 of them in front of you. We're not ready for it. Um, but they're not, I mean, they're technical, they're complicated, but if you have questions on it, I can walk anybody through it. So a week on that, and I'd say probably a week and a half to 3 weeks on getting the quotes back and analyzing the quotes and presenting them. So I mean, a month lead time would be huge. Any like 90 days would be more than enough, and we could really get a game plan together on a renewal. Especially if your current agent is blocking some markets, it's a jockeying position, right? It's rules of engagement
Yeah.
if you have more than one insurance agent in the market. So um, I work with a very small group of cyber insurance providers that I've got relationships with. They've proven themselves with claims, and I trust them. Though other carriers will just blanket block all of them. So sometimes I have to get agent a record letter. So yeah, I mean, on a renewal, 60 to 90 days. On a new business, give me 30 days.
Sure. Yeah. So the message there is get on top of this early, right? Know when your renewals are coming up. Work with your IT providers as you kind of go through this process, but get on top of it sooner rather than later. That's good message. Travis, I just want to thank you for taking time. As always, this is super important and informative, relevant, right? So again, I encourage anyone that is going through this process to consider reaching out to Travis, and getting this stuff taken care of. So but I guess we do have one last question. I'm just going to squeeze this in here.
Okay.
If a customer doesn't have an incident response plan in place yet and something happens, who do they call?
That's a great question. Um, First off, you got to figure out how bad the incident is. Can your local IT guy handle it? Can your managed service provider handle it? Do they throw their hands up and say, this is over our head? If you have an insurance provider, always get a hold of them, no matter how small you think the claim might be. If it involves personal identifiable information or transfers of money, get them involved. If there should be some coverage, get them involved early and often. Um, but man, I just learned this, and I've just started implementing it in every single one of my incident response plans with my clients. We make it's called a dummy proof incident response plan for any person in their organization. It's 3 steps. 1, unplug the internet. 2, call IT. 3, get a hold of your manager and have them call insurance. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, I call that dummy proof.
Yep, it's dummy proof, but you'd be surprised how many people panic in those situations, or even don't even know what the phone numbers, right, of their insurance agencies. Like that's the one thing that we've even stressed with some of these examples that we've gone through is, for example, email goes down. It's like, well, my insurance agent is in an email contact list. I have no idea even what the guy's name is, right? So there's a process of business continuity outside of your incident response that we would like to be able to work with our customers on to ensure that that panic stuff doesn't happen. But anyway, again, Travis, thank you so much. We will have this recording available. We'll be sending it out. We'll be sending out the Bowen and Associates sample incident response. And if you guys have any additional questions for me or for Travis, our contact information is in the chat. Love to hear from you guys. But anyway, everybody, thanks again for attending. I'll give you 6 minutes back of your day.
Buddy, thanks for having me.
Thanks again. Bye-bye, guys.